Hello and welcome. I hope that yesterday's talk was easier to hear. I understand from some of you who have kindly brought it to my attention that last week's talks, the videos were too quiet. The audio level couldn't be turned up, and I understand it's tricky to listen in sometimes if you're surrounded by background noise. So thank you for bringing that to my attention as respectfully as you did, and very few, probably for the same reasons, out of respect, mentioned it. But if it wasn't for it being brought to my attention, I wouldn't know. So I appreciate it. Any feedback, positive or negative, is always welcome. That's how we make this your channel, answering and talking about topics of your choosing, within the realms of Dharma, of course. And on Dharma, so now hopefully this sound issue is resolved and you are hearing me loud and clear. On Dharma, the full moon of, what are we now, August, has passed and time marches relentlessly on. We have passed the first lunar month of the Vasa, of which there are 3. We're 1/3 of the way into the Vasa. And if you remember at the beginning, I made a determination, 2 in fact. One was to hopefully have established or simply allow to manifest of its own accord a Dharma hall, meditation hall in the unused dilapidated neighbouring building, which work has begun. It did begin at the beginning of this 3-month Vasa retreat period, the monsoon season, so about 4 weeks ago now, and is progressing so incredibly quickly. You can see in the posts the photographs, and I do have someone who can string together those pictures into a video at some point, but at the moment they're just in the posts more or less each day, the progress as it develops. So with your kind support, we are refurbishing the neighbouring building, which was crumbling. The roof was falling down, the walls were falling down. A lot of it has had to be demolished and rebuilt. It's now at the real advanced stages. Even in that short time of 4 weeks, the walls are being rendered or plastered and finished off, and now they have broken up the old crumbling floors and are beginning to re-concrete surface those floors to form this beautiful Samadhi Sala, meditation hall, a place for bhavana, mental development. And please look at those posts, those photographs, if you would like to see the progress of that. So that's going on each day. It is interesting because I'm living in a very peaceful and quiet, secluded environment, which currently, during the daylight hours working, and with the exception of that full moon, those Uposita days, or Poya as they call it here, the workers, the builders are working 7 days a week. Of course, the Poya day, this being a Buddhist country, is a national holiday, so whatever day of the week that falls upon, everybody has the day off to hopefully keep 8 precepts, visit their temples, create punya karma, merit, good karma, good actions of body, speech and mind, not only for the benefit of ourselves but for all. And with the exception of those days, they work through it all daylight hours, very efficiently, very quickly. And once again, it's with much gratitude and thanks, because that's all down to your support, your kind donations or contributions online, offerings of dana, to support that determination I made for the manifestation of this beautiful meditation hall. It's not for me, it's for you, it's for others, it's for locals, it's for people travelling and coming here to visit in the area. A place where they can sit, where you can sit and quietly reflect, where we can teach meditation, where we can have Dharma talks, and some of the more devotional practices and ceremonies that go on in Buddhist countries and throughout Buddhist communities around the world. There are also going to be facilities for the use of visitors, toilets basically, so that it's a little bit more comfortable if you're passing through. I appreciate most people, if they're visiting, have come a long way. So, this is underway, and thanks to you, all going very well. I think it won't be long before we will see the roof going on, so that'll be a very visual change, and certainly by that time there'll be some form of video, I think, for you to see also. It probably won't have any commentary or sound, because I'm not into that sort of thing, but pictures paint 1,000 words, so it'll show you what's going on. So putting that aside for now and getting back onto Dharma and your questions, the first comment we have from someone today here is, I struggle in a particular way to probably some of us who end up seeing, I think I've started at the wrong point, seeing your videos. Right, here we go. I'll start here. I've been on my own spiritual journey based in Eastern philosophy for several years now. And my struggle is there are people in my life that are very unaccepting of that and treat me unfairly or ignore me when I speak, chime in or even joke. Most days lately, I love them and I know they love me. How do I find peace in those times? Or how would you, rather? So whatever philosophy you are following, studying, whatever is your interest, whatever is your path of practice, it should be first treated as self-development. We are practicing in Buddhism the Noble Eightfold Path, the path of Sila, moral virtue, Samadhi, meditation, and Panya, wisdom, or the development of wholesome mind states and reduction of unwholesome mind states. Firstly, working with those tools of right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness and right meditation on ourselves, or this physical presence we exist within, this physical body and this thinking brain. It is a practice rather than an intellectual exercise, and it is experiential rather than just a philosophy for debate and discussion. It is to be actioned, to be done by the wise. The Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, are to be listened to when you're interested and practiced to experience for yourself the results of that. Now those results, having kept precepts, firstly keeping 5 precepts, no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying or taking of intoxicants, is a gift, the most generous offering you can give to the world, to all beings, because it is a condition you are living within, that of doing no harm to yourself or others. So it's the ultimate in generosity. And anyone whom you are associating with, living amongst, can only be grateful for that and happy that you are living a life of moral virtue, both for your own benefit but also the benefit of others. They will appreciate and see that. Your life of quietude, solitary practice, meditation, again, should not affect others in any way, but will have a marked effect on your own demeanour, deportment, your own presence in, or your own way of being among the presence of others, that others will notice and appreciate. And with your development of wisdom, the development of wholesome mind states and reduction of unwholesome mind states, all the Brahma Viharas, the 4 Brahma Viharas, or 4 qualities, called Brahma Viharas heavenly abodes, because they are those qualities that we dwell in. The qualities of metta, loving kindness, karuna, compassion, mudita, joy for others, or the opposite of jealousy, and upekkha, equanimity, unreactiveness but understanding, doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, but not overreacting when it's better to leave something alone and do nothing. And in that Noble Eightfold Path I mentioned is right speech, which is so very important. Now, as Buddhist practitioners, we do not proselytize, we're not an evangelical religion going out to convert. This is the idea that we practice working on ourselves and our own development first. This way we can help others by example. Our example to others is what will lead them to follow, if they choose. They may have other ideas about how to lead their lives, and that is up to them. But most will see that when you're practicing well, the benefits of your practice, the fruits of your work, and they won't see it as a religious activity, they won't see it as anything spiritual, but just an improvement in your overall behavioural tactics, your behaviour. And they may then ask you, well, why have you become so calm? Why are you so nice these days? Why aren't you so argumentative like you used to be? Then you can say, oh, I've just been practicing a bit of meditation. I keep precepts. And even then, that is enough. So if, when you're amongst people, you're trying to teach, you're pushing your views, or even just discussing your views, even right view, remember, others might not be interested. If your hobby was stamp collecting, and your main interest in life was your collection of stamps, you wouldn't expect everyone you come across and meet, or your close family members even, to be interested in your hobby of stamp collecting, or even your collection of stamps. Or you might, but you would be considered a bit of an oddball, a bit boring, talking about your stamps all the time, and probably put other people off the idea of collecting stamps rather than anything else. So we keep those kind of interests and practices to ourselves for our own benefit, and the benefits that manifest themselves within us, whatever our interests may be, bring us some contentment, some happiness, are what are visible to others. And that also with the practice of Buddhism, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. The results of that practice becomes evident to others without us discussing our, as you say, Eastern philosophies amongst all of the people around us and those we meet. Because we become a bore, we become annoying, even to some extent a little self-righteous or conceited, even putting ourselves above others and becoming critical. And that is not loving kindness, that's not metta, that's not karuna, that's not compassion. We should still have mudita, joy for others, in all the actions of body, speech and mind that others are doing within a degree, so that are still wholesome, so people can still enjoy entertainment, going to the cinema, socializing, eating and drinking and doing the things they do, without us, anyone, or any fear of judgment from others, because that is how we live in lay life, how you live in lay life. But they will see through your practice that you are getting something more from that than is to be gained from worldly life. But let that happen naturally. So when you're discussing, in order to keep right speech, when you're talking with your family, when you speak, you say you chime in or even joke, bear in mind the rules we have, not rules, but the guidelines with regards to right speech. But more appropriately, because I'm sure you're doing that, it is okay to speak normally to people. They will talk about the weather. You don't have to engage in political debate or talk about politics. You don't have to engage or talk about any unwholesome aspects of life or get involved in conversations that are not constructive. Endless debates about all of the suffering in the world isn't going to help all of the suffering in the world, but your own actions do. But these own actions should be by way of example, not to convert, not to preach, not to teach others even, unless asked, and then you share from your own experience, which is easy. Well, all I do, you can say, is this. So when they say, you're so calm, you're so peaceful, you're not argumentative anymore. Ah, it's just because I keep precepts and practice meditation. Ah, what's that? They may ask. If they don't, that's it, leave it at that. You'll have caused no offence. And does it matter if they ignore you? They're leaving you in peace. But if they're treating you unfairly, is that really what's happening? Or is that your perception, your view of how they're treating you by comparison to others? If you're not interested in certain subject matters or certain activities, and they're leaving you out, that's not treating you unfairly. It's because you're not interested in those things anymore. Nibbida, a sense of disenchantment, has become established through your practice. That is, less interest in worldly activities and more interest in bhavana, mental development, and the development of those good qualities. So they're not treating you, people are not treating you, your family are not treating you unfairly by leaving you out when you wouldn't want to join in anyway. They're respecting your way of life, they're respecting your philosophy. And ignoring you, well, do you need to be heard? If they love you, as you say you know they do, and you love them, isn't that enough? Listen, rather than wishing to be heard. People will ask you. Eventually people will want to know how these improvements you've made in your life have come about. This is an experiential practice, and it's demonstrative. It doesn't need to be talked about unless you're asked to do so. As I'm doing now, we're talking about this in response to your comments and questions. And occasionally, by request, I'll just talk. Dharma talks. So that, at the end of your question, how would I do it? That's how I would, as we should be, as we're taught in this practice, to just begin with our work on ourselves, and others will see the fruits of that labour. So somebody wants to run far away from their problems to find liberation. And in some ways they're one and the same. So let me read this from the beginning. I have thought of becoming a monk for over 4 years now, and I've deliberated over whether I just want to run away from my problems or find liberation. And in some ways they're one and the same. However, I would say I want the latter. I'm exhausted of playing the same old game of achieving and needing to achieve more and never being content. I think I'm ready to let go of it all. I don't find myself attaining peace or any form of it with my current path. I need advice on how to move forwards with this path. So if you're practicing, as we were just talking about, keeping precepts, practicing meditation, and therefore developing wisdom as a result of that, within lay life, and lay life is becoming more and more, let's say, a struggle, possibly because you're developing nibbida, that disenchantment with ordinary worldly activities, then you gradually can take less of a part in those, have less involvement in worldly activities. Maybe by structuring it, if you're keeping 5 precepts at the moment, try at least once a week, keeping 8 precepts for 24 hours, not just the afternoon or just the morning, just 24 hours. So it may be a Sunday if you're living in part of the world where they use the Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend calendar. Or the Uposita, the full moon and new moon of each month, and half moons, which you can find on a lunar calendar, whatever's most convenient that fits in with society, but allows you the freedom to just keep 8 precepts on one day. You can do that even whilst working, but sometimes the meal time can become a little bit difficult there. But allow yourself a little flexibility on that. As long as you just eat once a day, roughly at the middle of the day, some point, and rather than snacking throughout the day, and that's sufficient food for you to be able to still do your work, then you can choose any day, can't you, to keep 8 precepts. So you can gradually try this out. Ordination, and so renouncing worldly life, is by no means running away from your problems. And it's also by no means just how you find liberation. You find liberation through facing your problems, understanding the cause of those problems, and eradicating the cause of those problems. Ordination doesn't eradicate the cause of those problems. The problems being the desire to have something other than the way it is. So the desire to have something you have not got, or not to have something you have. And therefore, wherever you are, your mind, your thinking will bring up all kinds of either sensual desire to have, or ill will to not have a situation. There will be laziness, restlessness and worry. There will be doubt, these 5 hindrances, obstacles. They're not only the 5 hindrances and obstacles to meditation, they're the 5 hindrances and obstacles to practice in our daily lives as lay practitioners. So there's no reason that you will find liberation any more easily by running away from your problems, because you can't run away from your problems. Ordination, the monk's life, is a way of going at your problems head on, facing them. We take all of our mental aversions and sensual desires and put everything into a crucible of focus, a melting pot, to concentrate 100% our efforts on burning away those defilements of greed, hatred and delusion. But, you'll often hear me say this, but intellectually, so in a systemized, clever way, by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path, and in addition to that, as ordained monks or nuns, bhikkhus or bhikkhunis, using the additional Vinaya rules or guidelines, code of conduct, to support that practice of sila, samadhi, panya, to its ultimate degree of focused attention and focused work on just eradicating those defilements. Whereas in the outside world, in worldly life, there are more distractions. It's easier to stray into diversionary areas of interest and not focus on that work. But that's okay. If you're gradually increasing your practice by bringing into your agenda every week this time you spend more dedicated to the practice by keeping 8 precepts, then this is how you can enhance that path. So I'll just go back to the beginning there. Don't think coming into monastic life is escaping your problems. Your problems will be just maybe come with you and be the same, or a whole new set of problems will arise, manifest themselves. We learn in this monastic life that there are no problems. It's not just as simple as saying there are no problems, there are only solutions, but it's a process of establishing, well, what are problems? Pulling them apart. It's always wanting something to be other than it is, isn't it? Even pain is as simple as that. Pain is not the problem. It is the not wanting to have the pain that is the problem. The second arrow, the second dart. The not wanting, the aversion to the pain. It isn't to say that we can all become accepting of pain, but we can use pain to focus our attention. Use pain as a meditation object, for instance, where possible. It's real, it's here and now, in the present moment. Now, many of your problems won't be here and now, in the present moment. There will be worries about the past, worries about the future. But even in monastic life, this can still and is still a problem for most practitioners. Even advanced practitioners, people who have been ordained bhikkhus and bhikkhunis for many years, many decades even, may still have concerns about the past or still be planning and worrying about the future. At the beginning of that project for the building next door, the neighbouring property that we're renovating, restoring, I said, I'm not going to do anything but make the determination that it manifests itself. You have done all the work by encouraging its ongoing process, the activity itself, your generous support, and I've just directed that. In a way, it's bypassed me. I've continued with my practice and used the distraction of the additional noise and dust and slightly at the moment unfamiliar surroundings immediately around my kuti to see the nature of change, see the nature of aversion as it arises, but not run away from it. I can just go 100 yards and I'm back on the sort of mangroves, the shady, cool areas beside the sea there. And I have done a couple of times when it's got very dusty or very noisy for my practice, but I've tried to sit through it to see if aversion is arising Or indeed, if the opposite, if pleasure is coming as a result of knowing that all that work is being done for the ultimate good, the ultimate benefit of many others. And it's interesting when practicing. You may not be in deep absorbed samadhi, but this is where we see the reality of existence. We see impermanence, unsatisfactoriness. We see how things are out of our control. We see this clearly. Vipassana is the Pali word, seeing clearly. Just sitting amongst it. So you too in your lay life should be doing that. Using situations to which you're averse to your benefit and ultimately your gain, the development of wisdom, ultimately the development of equanimity to those things. Well, that's smoke. I thought it was an army of ants. You're attached to your monk's way of life, the robes, the begging bowl, the chanting, the sutras, the whole thing. Am I? Okay, well, I don't think that's a bad thing. I would say this way of life isn't so much of gain or even loss. It's just breaking your existence down to the very bare minimum. So if I'm attached to just this one set of robes, which I've now had for 2 years, and I say set of robes, it's just this outer robe and a lower robe. This is it. And my begging bowl, as you call it, this pindapata, I don't have anything else, really. The monk's way of life is one of keeping these precepts and practicing meditation. It's not so much clinging, but it's letting go of everything else you may have in your life, I once had in mine. We ultimately have to cover our bodies up living in society. Is that attachment? To wrap a piece of cloth around you? Now, if I was walking through the centre of London, I would probably be quite noticeable, yes, but not so much here. I blend in with all of the other monks. So we don't wear anything special. But I'd say walking through the centre of London, I'd be noticeable, but for no positive reasons in most people's minds, really. They would think I was some hippie, middle-aged, old-aged hippie who's gone crazy or something like that, often. And do we get attached to that, really? I don't think so. If it's attachment, it's more a form of chanda, which is a wholesome desire, as opposed to tanha, craving or thirst. This way of life, this practice, yes, we do develop chanda, a wholesome desire to keep precepts, to practice meditation. That is the monk's way of life. Going on pindapata each day is a necessity if we want to eat. It isn't so much in Buddhist countries, no, we can just sit, people will bring food. But I have been brought up in a tradition that is such that we should, as our duty, go out each day on pindapata, arms round, which I do. It isn't actually very easy, it's hard work. And those who have accompanied me on that activity, just on a few occasions, some more dedicated practitioners, whilst visiting, have accompanied me each and every day for as long as they're here. And yes, they've enjoyed it, but their overall overriding comments about it are it's very difficult, it's very hard work. It's either very hot or very wet, very heavy, it's a long way. I They say you have bare feet, so it's even harder on the difficult terrains you're walking through. Are we attached to that? No, it's how we eat. So we have to have these basic requisites. We have to, through modesty and respect of others, cover these awful looking bodies. We can't walk around naked. So we cover them with the bare minimum, which is this piece of old cloth. The same piece of old cloth, and the only piece of old cloth I have to do that. And when washing this piece of old cloth, I cover myself with the other bit of old cloth. We have just one begging bowl. I don't have a cupboard full of crockery, knives and forks, glasses and cups. Just that bowl and a spoon and one cup. The chanting is part of our practice. The suttas, we say, not sutras in Theravada, the Pali words suttas, are the teachings of the Buddha. Are we attached to those? Yeah, we appreciate them. It is the Dharma. It is, after all, the guidelines to this practice, what I'm doing, my way of life. So if that's attachment, I think I'd rather be attached to this than be attached to my former life, which was a life of hedonistic idealism, a life of gain, greed, and a little bit, I suppose, of hatred, but certainly delusion, firstly, thinking that I could get contentment or happiness through acquisition. Through the practice, I came to realize, came to see very clearly that through renunciation, through letting go, I gained contentment, and that is true happiness. Rather than through acquisition, just fueling desire, tanha, unwholesome desire, or craving or thirst. Everybody knows that experience. The more you have something, the more you want of it. You get your new car or your new computer. As soon as you get the new one, you're thinking about the next upgrade. You finish breakfast, you're thinking about lunch. You finish lunch, you're thinking about dinner. You finish dinner, you're thinking about all of those meals again tomorrow. Contentment is living in the present moment, here and now, not thinking about the past or the future, and enjoying the present moment, here and now. That is not attachment. It's letting go of a whole lot more things. But one has to live in a society, and if that requires you to wear robes or cover yourself, it requires you to use a bowl to beg for your food, then that can be called monastic living, and that practice is a wholesome practice. To develop, as I was talking about earlier, those Brahma Viharas. So thank you for your comment, but one must understand, you can be, if you want to call it attachment, it's okay to be attached to doing good, as long as it doesn't lead to trying to do what you cannot, trying to do what cannot be done. You cannot change the world. You cannot take away suffering from the world. There is suffering. There is a cause of suffering. And yes, there is an end of suffering. And there is a path leading to the end of suffering. But the path leading to the end of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path, begins with your own practice. Working on yourself to then, by example, show to others, by this monk's way of life, how they too can be free from suffering. For the sake of categorization going forward, would it be worthwhile adding questions and answers to the title of your questions and answers videos, and have other videos titled with this reference to the subject matter? So the titles of the videos can be seen as a little misleading. I do agree. But one has to call them something, otherwise it would just have the date, which wouldn't be a bad thing, I don't think. But the titles usually represent, with regards to a Dharma talk, the nature of that Dharma talk, or with regards to questions and answers, the most prominent question or comment that's talked about within that talk. They need to be kept short, otherwise it just doesn't. I don't really think about it. The first thing that comes into my head, the first few words, is usually the most prominent comment I've just discussed, so that becomes the title. However, each and every one of those talks, as you later point out when you realise, because you send me another comment I noticed, so thank you for noticing and seeing that, everything's categorised into questions and answers and Dharma talks anyway. If you go to the channel description page, and I'll point you all in that direction because that's where you find sections along the top. I don't know how it looks to you, but from this end you've got posts, which are the pictures currently. I don't put anything in posts ordinarily, but currently the photographs of the refurbishment of the Samadhi Sala Dance meditation hall. But you've got playlists, and there are playlists of all these talks, so they do get categorized. So this is questions and answers, this particular talk. They used to be titled also questions and answers, but that means every video has the same title because people only read the first few words of a title. The rest goes off the screen or isn't paid any attention to. So whether it's at the beginning or the end, it would be the same for every or most videos, questions and answers, if it's in the title. So instead, they're put into a playlist category. So there's a whole each talk, if you only want to listen to questions and answers, or not listen to them, only want to listen to Dharma talks, you just go to the channel description page, go to playlists, and there you can sort them in either date order or popularity, so the most viewed. It's up to you, whatever comes up on your window, browser, whatever it is. So they are categorized by that way, and that's the most effective way one can categorize these talks. However, I'll say I don't want to just say this talk is going to be just about such and such a subject and then have a list of talks only about one subject, because the practice in its nature is holistic. It is the practice of the whole Noble Eightfold Path of Sila, Samadhi, Panya, and therefore how to do something isn't always just the answer. It has to be, so how to sit for a long time in meditation. Now there are videos just on that, but if you're not keeping the precepts, then you won't be able to sit for a long time in meditation. However good you are at it, however good and flexible your posture might be, your precepts will disturb your mind. Mara, the manifestation of greed, hatred and delusion, the personification of greed, hatred and delusion, will distract you from your meditation. So it's always a case of trying to listen to as much Dharma as possible, because it's always where you're trying to understand the practice. Because it is simple, yes, you just keep precepts, you practice meditation, you develop wisdom, but people want to know how to do that. And how to do that is by seeing the practice as a holistic experience and listening to someone whom has done this experientially and sharing that experience with you, which is what I try to do here, by way of my sharing my experiences with you on this platform. It's not a lecture, it's not preaching, it's not really mostly even Dharma talks per se of a formal kind. It is a way of assisting you in your practice by sharing with you my experience of coming from lay life into monastic life, my practice then and my practice now, but relating my practice now to your experiences through my own previous experience, your own experiences in lay life with your practice. So on that note, I wish you all very, very well with that practice, and may it be fruitful, and may you practice happily on your path towards Nibbana. Anything that's useful here, please use it. If not, just let it go. Until next time, be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.